Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and the Powers of 10. You do not want to read this without reading issue number 1 of House of X. Then come to this issue number 1, Powers of 10. You got to go intermix. They have the reading order in the back. It should be pretty easy. 12 issues total. X first, House of X first, Powers of 10 next, and just it bounce back and forth like that. This book, it's very important to understand that this is going to mess with your ear hole and your eye orbs, because we're going to be talking about the past, the present, the 100 years from now future, and the 1,000 years from now future. So this is basically Jonathan Hickman channeling Frank Herbert for Dune. I'm not joking when I say that's the purest vibe that I get from this, Frank Herbert's Dune. If you're a Dune fan, you will get this, you will love this. If not, you might feel a little bit lost. You might want to go back and read Dune before you read this. I'm not even kidding with that. But if you just read this without reading Dune, well, shame on you for one. 2, you should definitely go and read that. But 3, yeah, you'll probably be okay. And I'm going to try and help out with that. So let's get talking about who made this book. We'll talk about the book itself. We're going to try and do a deep cut, all right? Jonathan Hickman is the writer. The artist is R.B. Silva. Silva also does the cover with Marte Gracia. Adriano Di Benedito does the inks along with R.B. Silva. Blah. The color artist is Marte Gracia. VC's Clayton Cowles does the letters, and Tom Mueller does the design. A whole bunch of people doing the variant covers, and Stan Lee and Jack Kirby created the mother effing X-Men. My peeps! Okay, so we're just going to do the deep cut. I'm not going to do 2 different videos of this. I'm going to say for the first part of this video, very good book. I definitely recommend getting it. Just reading House of X and not this, not Powers of 10, according to what they're telling us, we're not going to understand what's going on. And this does kind of pick up from there. We get to see that Raven Darkholme, Mystique, she shows up, with the little thumb drive, the flash drive thing that she's got, and she's like, "Hey, I got a little USB thing. What's up?" And there's a little argument back and forth about payment. Professor X is like, "Isn't just helping out your fellow mutants enough?" No. He says, "Well, that's interesting, because I think that helping out your fellow mutants should be enough, especially since that's the payment that I've declared for you living here." All of a sudden, she becomes really generous. Now, here's something that's interesting. A lot of people have been speculating that maybe, just maybe, this isn't actually Professor Charles Xavier, or it's something else because he came back in his little pool. Tell me how he got the power of telekinesis. Anybody else notice that? He causes the thumb drive to come over to him from, a very short distance. He could have the weakest version of telekinesis, of psychokinesis, and yet somehow that's new. Anyway, I find it interesting. Maybe it's just Magneto just sending it over. I don't know, but that was very interesting. I also find it interesting that there are a bunch of new characters that are in here, because again, 100 years in the future, 1,000 years in the future, plus altered pasts. Moria McTaggart shows up. Somebody pointed out to me, because I was too lazy to read, The Curious Case of Moira X in the hidden little message that was given in the previous issue. So this issue is The Curious Case of Moira X. She is meeting Professor X. Professor X is meeting her for the very first time again. She remembers them meeting before. He doesn't, for some reason. He's a little bit taken aback. And this is in the past, mind you. So an altered past. In the future, we have 2 Nimrods. We have 100 years in the future, Nimrod the Lesser, which is the regular Nimrod that we know. The big pink machine that's just, I've got a disintegrator ray, and I can kick the Juggernaut's ass without even thinking about it. Yeah, that guy. Also, welcome to the X-Men Dazzler. We've also got 1,000 years in the future, Nimrod the Greater, which is actually just this little pink machine with little spiky things out of it that seems so docile. And I bet you it's going to kick everybody's ass in a heartbeat. Now, we've got Only a few things to actually read in this, and they are really freaking important to read, my peeps. I read them a couple of times. I suggest you do the same. The Sinister line. We've got the Mutant Breeding Program and Chimera. The first 3 generations of these mutants, because the DNA actually has only the one strain of the original strain of the X gene. All right, everybody only has the one. They only have the one. And we talk about some of these characters in here. We talk about Quire, so Quentin Quire, telekinesis, Omega level, that's level 10. We've got Rasputin. I don't know which Rasputin this is. Maybe they're talking about Colossus or what's her name? Magic. But they just say Rasputin. And then they give METAM for the power at power level 6. So is that metamorphosis? I'm not putting too much thought into that one. Force field, that's pretty easy at level 5 for Bane. Okay, interesting. Kitty Pryde, intangibility level 4. And Kinney, Laura Kinney, weapon X. What do you call it? She's got healing at power level 4. Okay, very interesting. Then we see Rasputin the Fourth. It's funny because if you know about the history of, like, there was the Colossus series. I think it was only like 4 issues, and Mr. Sinister was in that one. We come to find out that the Rasputins are actually related to the Rasputin from World War II, where World War II or World War One. Actually, I think that was World War One. Excuse me, where he was a terribly imposing figure who apparently had some mystical powers. They said that, he cut off his head and he still talked to the people. It was terrifying. Anyway, this Rasputin the Fourth has 5 of the X gene strains. I love the way that these are actually located, and he can do all of them. This person, it looks like a she, can do all of them, but at lesser rates. With the exception of the one thing I don't know what that is. Metamorphosis, whatever that is. It's, what do you call it? At level 6, same thing as whatever the character is on here. Interesting. We learn about all 4 generations of these mutants on the next page. The outliers. These were mistakes that were actually intentional and guided mistakes by Mr. Sinister, who later on betrayed everyone. Well, that's important to know because it's freaking Mr. Sinister. He just clones himself over and over again so that he continues living, right? He was never a friend of the mutants, ever, and trusting him was dumb. And they say in retrospect, we should have known that. Yeah, no crap, Sherlock. So, we get, the future stories are interesting. The 100-year, the 1,000-year. Fortunately, we're not getting too much of the 1,000-year because that's a little bit freaky. We get the kennel. Look at the spelling of the kennel. I like that. The Henil. The Henil. Anyway, just the kennel. This was actually pretty interesting too. The story of the Black Brains we're getting. We get to see one of them in here, and it's a toughie. It's a real freaking toughie. Surviving mutants and the soul mutants. Sol being the name of our sun. Luna's the name of our moon. I think enough people know that. I know there are some people, like younger people, they won't know that. It's cool. Sol, S-O-L, is the name of our sun. So that's the solar system, the solar system. What do you call it? Of the surviving mutants, this is the 1,000 years in the future, it's looking like. There are actually, they just give all the numbers here. All the number of the people surviving. So you see the people on Benevolence, which is on the outskirts of the Shi'ar Empire. That's kind of like serving as a buffer for the breeding of the brood space. There's less than 8,000, just under 8,000 mutants out there. In Chandalar, which is still the home world the throne world of the Skrull Empire, 1,829 mutants there. The mutants have been moved all over the place. And in the Sol system, on Asteroid K, are all 8 of the mutants in the Sol system. In the Milky Way, well, not the Milky Way galaxy. So that would also be, I think, the Milky Way galaxy. But at the very least, in that solar system, 8. There are only 8 there. This is about as interesting gets. Yeah, take a look at Nimrod the Greater right here. Whole bunch of different species in here. The humans have done everything that they can to survive, which is actually done by no longer being human. They've now hooked up with the machines too much, so I guess it's like a breeding in a way of Sentinels and humans. Yeah, very Dune-esque, very much like the book Dune, in its own ways. It's still original, don't get me wrong, but I could see the influence. So now we've got all of these words. The next issue of House of X, which should come out next week, the 7th of August. Oh my God, that's one of the red ones. That's the one that everybody's screaming about is so amazing. So now we've got all this stuff, which is the curious case of Moira X. And we've got this stuff here. I figure out more of the code, all right? Right up here, it says, well, there's the curious case of Moira X behind, and it's then, and then it says, here we go, right down here at the bottom. Then, hello, old friend. That's right. The symbol that's used here is actually a TH. I could be wrong, but it looks like it's got to be a TH. That's the only way that the curious case of Moira X actually works. So, and I've actually written that in here, but since I'm not totally sure, I put it in blue. And then up here, I've got another one, H. Pretty sure that's H because that's the only way that this actually works. Hello, old friend. That's the only one I wasn't entirely sure of. So, yeah, nice Eric Clapton song there. Hello, old friend. Surely good to see you once again. This was an awesome book. I enjoy trying to break down the code. It's interesting that looking at this, it's a fairly weak cipher, but I still enjoy the hell out of this cipher. It's interesting that I'm starting to already memorize some of the names that are here, some of the letters, some of the sounds, more specifically. I like this. I genuinely like this. So I'm looking forward to more of this coming up. The next issue, again, is supposed to be absolutely absurdly amazing. I am looking forward to see what all these writers are talking about, because all these writers got that book in advance. Not cool. Federico Blee was talking on one of the things like, oh yeah, man, it was a really good book. I liked it, House of X. And I was like, yeah, they're saying that the next issue is crazy. All the writers are going crazy about it. It's like, maybe I should stop coloring and I should start doing the letters, or excuse me, start actually writing some of the books. Yeah, you and me both, brother. You and me both. Anyway, guys, I'm on it for the next issue. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.